Hi everyone, my name is Heather and I'm the person behind Happy Puppy Truffles. Today I wanted to share with you guys a project where I kind of put together a bunch of different pieces of traditional origami to make your very own display for Hinamatsuri. And I thought I'd show you guys some of the parts that I've put together here. I've already shown you guys how to make these dolls, so you can look at the video if you need to be reminded of how to do that. But I just took some really nice special Yuzen origami paper that I had to make both of these, and tried to use a really nice like dark blue color for the emperor, and then for the empress I used kind of this pink and red and gold paper. And I went ahead and made sure to include the extra paper layers for their face and their hair, just so that it wouldn't look so weird with that, you know, full pattern all the way through to the top of their head. But I just used paper that was 15 by 15 centimeters for this. Now, there's a lot of paper involved in all of what we're going to be doing here, but I'll show you guys. I have for the Hina boy and girl that was 15 by 15 centimeters. Then I also made a Palanquin, and that's this little guy here. And I used some of that black paper that has the little sakura blooms on it. And I made that 7.5 by 7.5 centimeters so that it'd be a little small. This is a piece that is usually on the display on the towards the very bottom of the taller displays, but you see some of the smaller ones have it too. It's not meant to be real size for the person, for the dolls. It's meant to kind of represent toys that the dolls might have, for example. So it's like a little toy version of that. And usually there's other things included with this too, chests of you know, clothes and other kinds of things, many of them, many pieces sometimes, but sometimes you'll also see smaller displays just have one or two of those kinds of pieces included. So my design here is going to be with the emperor and the empress, and then this kind of in between them. And then the hishidai and hishimochi, or the rice stand, and then the rice cakes, the mochi that you put on those in front. And that's kind of a size that maybe is almost the right size for the dolls. It's actually a little bigger. It's meant to be more for display too. So for the hishidai here and the hishimochi, I have, and I know it's probably kind of hard for you guys to see because this stuff is small, but we have the little die with the little box underneath. And again, I'll have a link here so you guys can see the video if you want to know how to make this. But this is just an adjusted box to be more rectangular in shape. And I'll show you guys the dimensions for this. This gets a little tricky if you're trying to replicate this exactly. The hishidai base, you use a 4x4 paper for that square that becomes tapered. The top is 4.7 by 4.7 centimeters, and the dimensions for the box are here in parentheses, 3, 2.4, and 0.3. All are 0.3, so you know that's how the depth is the same for all of those layers. And then all of the hishimochi are also listed here, the biggest one being 4 by 4 centimeters with a dimension of 2.5, 2, and again 0.3. And then the next layer is 3.4 by 3.4 centimeters with a dimension of 2, 1.6, and 0.3. And then the top pink one is 2.8 by 2.8 centimeters with a dimension of 1.5, 1.2, and 0.3. So if you cut out your papers and you fold this way, then you'll get these pieces that can, you know, in this kind of a nice, what do I want to say? Kind of nice little steps that you get then as for the size changing for those 4 pieces, those rectangular boxes. And then you want to make 2 of those because you want to have the same thing for both the emperor and the empress. So I have both of those made for both of them. And then we make another rectangular shape. This is the base here that I've made. And I used basil paper for this, and just a gray because it was the color I had. Typically this is made out of black lacquer, so if you have black paper, use black. That's much to be preferred. And actually this layer, which is the layer that the emperor and empress stand on, usually has kind of like a pretty rainbow vertical lined pattern along the side, which I didn't really have around to replicate. But this base, the paper was 19 by 19 centimeters, so that my box is 15 by 6 centimeters. It's supposed to be fairly narrow. The idea is that your dolls should just barely fit on here. And again, remember, these guys can stand up. If you just poof them out a little bit, you'll get a good angle going for these. And I'll do the same thing for the girl here too. But you should be able to have enough room for them to both stand with a bit of freedom here. And I'm actually going to wind up putting them back a little tiny bit. And then that palanquin can sit right here in between the two of them. And then we'll have, on the next layer, we'll have the hishidai and the hishimochi. So the next layer is a little bigger stand, and that's part of the fun of making these Hinamatsuri, is that you have different layers, lots of different parts to it, depending on the size you're making. So I wanted to make mine just a tiny bit bigger. Oops, everything falls apart. But that larger box was made out of a 24 by 24 centimeter paper. So the dimensions were 17, 11, and 1.5. And I'll put all this dimension stuff in the description too, so that you guys can see that. But what you wind up getting, and I know from the camera angle it might be a little tricky to see, but you've got the bigger box down here, and you can kind of let it go backwards as much as you can, so that you get like a nice even border between this back and the sides. It should be about a centimeter difference between those two. And then I can have my emperor and my empress. The emperor always goes on the left, and then the little palanquin right in front. And then you can have the down here, the little tape, the hishidai, which is the rice cake stand, and the hishimochi right on top of that. And you want to try to get things lined up as much as you can so that it's sort of resting right in front of both of them here. And of course trying to keep things as centered and, you know, as clear as you can get it. But that's sort of what we're looking for in the display and the setup. And then for the very last bit, we're going to put a folded screen in the back, and I'll show you guys how to make that today. It's super easy, of course, and then I'll get a better angle so you guys can see the display finished. I had this piece of paper left over from when I cut out the piece for the smaller base. The dimensions, I can tell you guys here, you can kind of wing it. I didn't purposefully figure this out and measure it in a particular way. I just happened to see the size left over. It's about 11.5, and then this paper is usually 30.5. So that's kind of the paper size I wound up getting. And it's nice because it's 30 wide, I can then take some gold foil paper, 2 sheets, 15 each, and I can put them here and add them to this piece. And I'm just going to have them overlap a little because I want to try to have a little bit of a border. And this is where, you know, you're going to want to glue really well. And we're also going to need to cut this down because we don't want it to be too big, of course. But if I kind of imagine that I want to have a, you know, border like that's about like this, then I can you can either measure with a ruler or, you know, do this part just on your own by eyes and kind of guesstimate what looks good. But then once I get both of these pieces of paper cut, then I can apply a lot of glue and put it onto this paper. Now I've already done an accordion fold on the paper. I just started by folding it in half, and then I folded each half into thirds and gave myself the creases. I actually used my ruler to make my creases because it's so hard to make good crease with the basil paper or the basil paper. And I did the same thing when I made the stands too. It's pretty hard to fold. You want to take your time when you're folding it. But I'll go ahead and put the gold foil down on here, and fingers crossed it'll turn out okay. We'll be needing to put the creases through again, and then it should just stand on its own behind everything as a nice little stand for stuff when we're done. So I'll go ahead and cut my paper really quick here so that it's the same size. So I've got my 2 pieces of paper here, and I'm just going to go ahead and put some glue right along one of these edges. And I really just want it to overlap just a tiny bit. And I kind of tested how much I really wanted it to overlap, a little bit already. And then I'm just going to put a whole bunch of glue all over this too, and then we're going to try to keep it flat, of course, on the paper that we've already folded. So when you're finished, you might have something that kind of looks like this, and then you just want to try to give it a nice little chance to set, especially with that middle part where you've got the 2 papers overlapped. You want to give it a second to kind of catch, otherwise you might have things kind of popping open weird. Don't want that to happen, of course, but we do want to create the creases in here and then make sure that you can still get a chance to smooth out stuff. Things have a tendency to kind of, you know, get poofed out weird, so you want to smooth things out as much as you can. This is pretty unforgiving, so you do really want to kind of just take your time and try your best to get things to work the way you want to. But you should be able to kind of get it to come together so that you get a nice little frame, a screen for the back of your setup for your Hinamatsuri dolls. And that kind of just gives you the little finish that you need then. Just stand that behind everything, and that gives you the completed little display for your Hinamatsuri. And I'll turn the camera around, of course, have better photos from the front. But yeah, and I hope you guys, if you're celebrating, I hope you have a wonderful Hinamatsuri, and I'll have some more fun projects to share with you guys in the days to come. Thanks. Bye.